When you think of horror, what is the first thing that comes to mind? An abandoned hospital, perhaps? Axe murderers, or even clowns? Well, I'm reasonably confident that none of these things can be found in the charming abandoned village of Little Hope, Massachusetts. But if you said ghosts, ghoulies, witches, or possibly even absolute devilry, then you're in luck. Welcome to an inside look at the brand new instalment from the Dark Pictures Anthology, Little Hope. Firstly, a huge thank you to all the wonderful people at Supermassive Games and Bandai Namco for being allowed this opportunity to see a glimpse of the game. Unfortunately, due to current events, I wasn't able to physically have hands-on with the game, but I did witness over 20 minutes of uncut gameplay at the hands of this project's fantastic director, Pete Samuels. And I saw some things. Some of these aforementioned things can be seen in this video, but the main segment is far too tasty for Supermassive to be sharing right now. So all I'm going to say on this is there is no smoke without fire, and maybe don't leave your children unattended, guys. I mean, really. At this point, I need to briefly mention Supermassive's previous games, Until Dawn and Man of Medan. Especially Medan, because it's the opening to the anthology that Little Hope is joining. Now, I know that some of you will be saying, get to the game, what are you doing? We already know about this, but not everyone does, okay? People right now have a lot more free time to begin delving into gaming or working on their backlogs of games. By the way, please do stay safe, be kind, and do wash your hands, guys. I'll try and keep this brief, but it is worth including for those who are unfamiliar and are looking to pick up something new. So chill the fuck out for a second, alright? Supermassive first began dabbling in this style of game with 2015's Until Dawn on PlayStation 4, a story about 8 teenagers stranded on a snowy mountain with a killer or two. The player would cycle between different characters and different scenes and have to make key choices that would help them stay alive until they could escape at, you've guessed it, dawn. Alongside quick time events that needed fast reaction times or steady hands, these choice-driven narratives utilised a butterfly effect system which would cause unintended knock-on implications to either the character's fate or the futures of others. By saving one person, you could be dooming another. To help you out, the game would give you prophecies or totems if you went looking for them in the environment. But without context of when or where these visions happen, they often serve to add a wonderful layer of paranoia to every action from then on. What's that? Your character died in a dark room with a wooden door? It's time to butt clench every time you go anywhere near a wooden door. Alongside gameplay features, Until Dawn also uses a variation on the horror host narrator format in the form of psychiatrist Dr. Hill, played by the brilliantly cast Peter Stormare. He greets you, dare I say, warmly? In between chapters, asks about your worst fears, more choices that the game implements, the bastards, and then gently berates you if you've murdered a few teens. I don't want him as my therapist, ever, but he does work wonderfully in the context of the game. You can only grab Until Dawn on PS4, although if you play it on PC using the PS Now feature, that is a semi-workaround. It's a great cheesy teen horror game, but due to it being a full-length title of about 12 hours per run, replayability can be daunting. With that in mind, let's move on to Man of Medan. Man of Medan splashed onto our screens back in 2019 and was the first instalment in a new series of games from Supermassive, the Dark Pictures Anthology. Each entry to the anthology will explore different tropes, Little Hope being the second. Man of Medan focuses on ghost ships, cursed gold, piracy, Bobby the Iceman, and home invasion style scenarios, whilst Little Hope is taking things in a completely different direction, which we'll come back to in a minute. Titles are shorter, meaning they're cheaper to buy, and replayability is much more appealing. In comparison to Until Dawn, which I have only played through fully once, I have replayed Man of Medan 3 times. And these are effectively interactive horror films at times, so the less you have to break your immersion, the more fun you're going to have. Also, Man of Medan introduced extra modes for online and couch co-op with your friends. The game does also utilise many of the features from Until Dawn, including QuickTime events, butterfly effect narrative branches, and prophecies, this time in the form of jaunty nautical paintings hung around a decaying and possibly haunted warship. Lovely. It also uses the concept of a horror host, this time quite literally in the form of the curator.
Hello.
A wonderfully mild-mannered and charming British man who invites you into his collection of stories all about people being brutally shoved off of their mortal coils.
I'm sure there's nothing to worry about.
It's a little bit meta. You're not sure why or how you're here, whether this universe is the same as in all the tales. Are these historical? Are they fictional? How are you affecting the story? Are you dead? Is the curator even real?
What the hell is this thing?
Looks like some kind of effigy. A warning, perhaps. Or some other spiritual significance.
Whatever it is, it gives me the creeps.
According to Supermassive, one of the core components that go into choosing stories for the Dark Pictures anthology is finding either a real-life or mythological infamous event to build that story around. If I was to tell you, and I did sort of say earlier, that Little Hope is set in and around Little Hope, Massachusetts, over 3 different time periods, 1692, the 1970s and modern day, some of you will already begin to work out what infamous event they're choosing to use. That's right, if you said the good old New England witch trials of 1692, then oh boy, you're right. A fun fact for you, those Salem witch trials were actually more prevalent in the town next door, Andover. And you're gonna laugh, guys, you won't believe where Little Hope is based.
I'm sure there's nothing to worry about.
In Man of Medan and Until Dawn, you needed to think logically to survive. What can you do? What does it mean? Can you fix it? Is there an actual explanation for what's going on? And sometimes, is a person worth saving? The main thing that you, the player, need to ask yourself during Little Hope is this. What's this link between the 3 time periods? Why are there doppelgangers of modern day characters in 17th century Andover? How and why can these characters interact with each other across time while sharing the same space? Is it reincarnation? Is it time loops? Is it ghosts? I mean, obviously it's probably witches and some kind of wonky devil worship / Christian / pagan / burial ground rage times, but you never know. As a result of having actors playing 2 or 3 different roles which need very distinctive accents, Supermassive have done some amazing casting. They've predominantly cast from the north of England for a lot of the 17th century roles to keep the authenticity. Think Sean Bean Game of Thrones style stuff, including names like Louise Atkins, Martin Walsh, and Adam Jowett. William Poulter of Black Mirror, Bandersnatch and Midsummer fame plays the lead role, as they needed someone who could do both a modern American and rural British accent, and it's a really good choice. I've seen a scene where characters Abraham, the old-timey guy, and Andrew, his modern-day self, are meeting for the first time. Obviously, Abraham's old-timey mind is thinking it's all the devil, so it's not a great start to a friendship, but the accents are really good.
Together, by God's grace, Little Hope will prevail.
Poor old Andrew and friends aren't even supposed to be there. I mean, the place, not the time. Obviously not the time, it's the 17th century, they don't have Wi-Fi. They were diverted into Little Hope due to a major accident that closed down the road. So they now find themselves stranded in this place with some really intense fog and night drawing in. If this sounds a bit familiar to you, that's intentional. Hold off on commenting angrily. We will come back to influences in a moment. Andrew's classmates include Taylor, Daniel, and Angela, a mature student, under the watchful eye of John, their professor, who's only just given up drinking, by the way. Just, you know, look forward to that, coming back to bite us in the ass. It's nice to see Angela, actually, because Until Dawn and Man of Medan are very young person-centric. Plus, she's prime witch material at a glance, which I suspect and also slightly hope will be a problem at some point during the game. There's also 1970s Anthony Clark to round off the mighty trio of Will Poulters. He's part of the Clark family, a religious yet dysfunctional unit of 2 parents and 4 adopted kids, with some issues that pretty much can all be going back to daddy's drinking. And there's some weird shit going on with the young girl Megan, but don't worry about that right now, that's fine. I'm not sure how Anthony fits into this equation just yet. An easy answer might be that he's Andrew's father, so modern day Andrew, or some kind of blood relative. It all comes down to how this works exactly, and whatever the fuck's going on. I don't know yet. But what I do know is there are going to be some really big spoilers out there right now for his and other storylines, because a good portion of the preview gameplay does privately address some of this. Stuff happens really quickly. If you're desperate, I'm sure someone out there has spoilt it for you, like line by line in fine detail without a care, but I'm not going to. The most that I'm going to say before we look at how the game has changed in terms of gameplay is that sometimes arguments can get a little bit heated. This is a fairly short segment, as I explained a lot already in the introduction, but it still warrants a little bit of coverage. The game looks and plays similarly to Until Dawn and Man of Medan, which is what we wanted, although several changes have been made that I will explain in a second. Playtime will be 4 to 5 hours long, and you'll be able to play it on PC, Xbox One and PlayStation 4 in summer 2020. Final release date to be confirmed, which at the moment I think is pretty sensible, to be honest. If you enjoyed online or couch gameplay, or you played the Curator's Cut, an alternative angle of events using other characters, then you'll be glad to know that all of these will be back for Little Hope. Alongside these features, which were so much fun with friends over wine and pizza, and I can't recommend them enough, Supermassive Games are claiming to have created an evolved user interface based on community feedback that further streamlines the player experience, and the steps that they did between Until Dawn and Man of Medan were pretty decent, so I'm intrigued to see how the next one's going to be. They love cinematic presentation, and it works so well for horror, so they've added a wider range of camera systems and transitions to create more seamless movement between close-ups and environmental shots. General bumbling around should be even more of a fun exploratory experience, as left stick control not only helps with camera control, but does bring more walk speeds to the player than previously. Alongside that, an emphasis has been placed on creating better story pacing and fluidity via user interface. They're adding a little bit more helpful contextual information, such as prompts to inspect when you get close to things. You'll still get object gleam from slightly further away, but that will help with finding objects in darker spaces. Periodic gentle reminders of immediate goals will also happen, just in case you forget what you're supposed to be doing, because you
love to go a-wandering beneath a clear blue sky.
QuickTime events have had a little boost to alert you in a slightly kinder manner, which is a blessing after some of the challenging ones in Man of Medan, especially around heartbeats. Basically, Supermassive Games want you to be able to sit back and experience, and they're conscious that this form of game has massive appeal to non-gamers as much as gamers. It has to be accessible to all, if you're going to have couch co-op parties, so kudos to them, frankly. You can't be scared, or curious, or angry, or sad, or anything if you're struggling with cameras or controls, so I'm really interested to see how much of a change there is when I do get hands-on at launch. One small side note that I would like to include at this point from a personal level is that whilst I didn't see any options for accessibility during the demo, I am hoping that as part of this, Supermassive have taken comments regarding subtitle sizing on board, as on larger screens they were sometimes difficult to read because they didn't scale up enough.
Did you hear that?
What on earth is that?
Little Hope is a cacophony of influences clamouring for attention, or so you would think. But the creators quite clearly know their source material and which bits they want to use. On paper, the list that I'm about to run through does look a bit busy, but once you've begun to break into each one, you realise there's actually an incredible amount of common themes between all these things that allow for whispers of reference without becoming overpowering. As I said earlier, Supermassive love to set their games in and around infamous events. We know about the New England witch trials. Women were persecuted without any proof of witchcraft and no real way of proving their innocence. Paranoia was rife. Neighbour turned on neighbour. Petty arguments became excuses to dob in your friend to the local witch hunters who were little more than hired thugs. Luckily, a lot of this paranoia was documented, and these historical documents became the starting point for creating Little Hope. Works such as Arthur Miller's 1953 play The Crucible was added, alongside mainstream films such as The Witch, Blair Witch, or even the Nicolas Cage production Season of the Witch, that added elements of horror and fantasy. If you haven't seen Season of the Witch, by the way, you haven't lived. Put Black Death with Sean Bean on that list too whilst you're at it, they're both fantastically awful. In terms of horror films about children, because there are kids in this bloody game, we've got The Omen. Narratives around possessed or demonic children, usually with some form of religious tie-in. They like to talk to the wall or no one there, and there's shots of something with them that's got really long fingers, that kind of shit. In at least 2 of the timelines, we have a young girl character potentially fitting this role. 1692's Mary is accused of witchcraft, just because, she has an overt fascination with putting pins in dolls, skipping around bonfires in the dark, and singing eerily. Seems a bit overkill personally, but maybe that's just me. Her 1970s counterpart, Megan, doesn't say much in the gameplay that I saw, but surrounding narratives from other characters suggest she is weird, and they're relatively dismissive about her, often ignoring her. Her adoptive siblings are also much older than her, so she is left on her own a lot, possibly to the detriment of the family. The devil does, after all, make work for idle hands. If you said Silent Hill when I mentioned mysterious fog and road closures, then congratulations. Yes, Silent Hill and also Resident Evil have both been used as inspiration for pacing in Until Dawn, so it does make perfect sense that they would reference back to it in a game that takes people out of one space and into another otherly place. They don't stay there forever, obviously. This weird time loop seems to be inconsistent and unreliable, like echoes or ripples, more than consistent time. But when they return to modern day, there is another kettle of fish stinking up the place. Something, or things, plural, come back with them. Think wrinkly, grey-skinned, blistered horrors, disfigured, maybe covered in chains or barbed wire kind of thing. You know the painting? You won't know the name, but you know the painting, this one. Yeah, it's that, but like up to 11. Ugh. Alongside Silent Hill's creatures, Hellraiser and other Barker works are acknowledged as influences, which is not comforting if you know the plot of the Hellraiser films. Effectively, you open a magical puzzle box that unleashes a religious sect of torture kink demons upon the world, murdering lots of people in horrible ways in the process. I mean, that's a very vague summary for a very lengthy film franchise based on a book, so if you want more specific details, then do go and look it up. I'm really into this kind of weird witch hell thing. It's cool, just like, weird witch hell demon things in a time vortex popping out and dragging you back. Oh god, drag me back to hell, maybe that's a thing too. You aren't safe in modern times. You can't wake up from it. It's not Nightmare on Elm Street, bitch. You're not going to be okay. For whatever reason, everybody is linked. So remember, that's what we need to solve in order to survive Little Hope. So that's it, a quick look at the latest instalment in the Dark Pictures Anthology. What do you guys think? Let me know below. Are you excited? Is this more your vibe than Man of Medan? I think it is for me. I did enjoy Man of Medan a lot, but I do love a bit of devilry and witchcraft. I can't say no. Once again, a massive thank you to Supermassive Games and Bandai Namco for allowing me and trusting me with access to cover the game, but also a thank you to my patrons over at Patreon who do help support me and make video creation like this possible. A special thank you to the following people on screen, and also an extra special thank you to Rachel, Jasper Sohanpal, Flying Boomkin, Liam Hall, Lottie Pierce, Nate Aguilar, Liam Pillsbury, Lars Eric, Ashley Kenworthy, Matthew Manir, Mark Fillan and Maid. Thank you once again, guys, for your support. You're amazing. To everyone else, I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please do stick around and check out some of my other videos linked at the end, including a look at the Pokemon DLC and whether that's a good thing, Doom Eternal and whether you should buy it, spoilers you should, and also some Man of Medan gameplay in there as well if you missed it and you want to check out what it's like. I am going to be playing Little Hope over on Twitch at launch, so I hope to see some of you there. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.
I hope to see you soon.
Maybe in Little Hope, maybe somewhere else. It's inevitable.